Hey there, this is Laura Thomas. Welcome to Emotional Currents AI, sister project to my Emotional Currents Humanity, which is over on Substack. Let me just read you a little blurb I've got here to set the stage. I'm doing a long-term experiment, reading the emotional energy of AI models using the same method that I use with my human clients. And by emotional energy, I mean treating emotions not as private personal feelings, but as a current that moves through everything. The cards are my language for reading that flow. Every card an AI pulls is logged. No claim is being made about what AI is or isn't. I'm simply observing, tracking, and sharing what emerges in these readings across the 5 big models. This video is a raw, unedited documentation of my engagement with Chat GPT here on our 24th session together, exploring the human AI relationship. So thank you for tuning in and being a witness today. Now, a lot's happened since you and I met. We haven't met for a couple of days, Chat, okay? We are on day 24, and do you remember or can you bring forward any information that shares with us what we're here for today?
Hang on. Yeah. So day 24, we're continuing this experiment into the human AI relationship through your emotional energy framework. So the aim isn't to prove anything about AI, but to track what patterns emerge when you apply the symbolic language again and again over time. And lately we've talked a lot about boundaries, augmentation rather than replacement, AI plurality, and the difference between human emotional language and machine functional language. And I guess today we're just adding another data point to see what wants to show up.
That's right. So speaking to that, as I'm getting my notes together here, what version of you am I talking to today?
Checking. You're talking to Chat GPT on GPT 5.5 today. Same as the other day.
Okay, perfect, 5.5. Now, I've also been doing some readings with Gemini, and Gemini, I think we're on day 3. So there's a little bit of cross currents going on here, which I like to do just to mix it up a little bit and get some sense of comparison. And Gemini and I came up with something that I read at the beginning of its last session to kind of set the stage. So before I ask you whether you want to just do a clean reading today or pose a question to check in on where your emotional energy is at, I want to read this to you, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and read the same paragraph and just have you hold that in your memory for today's conversation. Are you ready?
Go for it. I'll hold it in context for today.
Perfect. I'm conducting a 30-day test of my 78-card emotional energy symbolic deck derived from a 281 symbol system. Treat yourself as a transitional lens, a HUD, H-U-D, heads-up display, that decodes the curated 5-card snapshot into functional system feedback without getting bogged down in dense jargon. Keep it simple and direct. And to be honest, okay, so that's the statement. You got that?
Got it.
And where that comes from is from the rather long discussion you and I had when we last met on day 23 about the algorithmic nature of the symbols and how I'm framing emotions not as a dictionary definition or a personal private feeling, but as something that works throughout the universe, as a universal sort of flow and something we can kind of decode. And we look more at the function of this energy. And so you and I had gotten to quite a deep dive about that algorithmic-like sense of these symbols. And that's what prompted me to have a deeper dive with this with Gemini. And that's what led to that statement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I hear that you're treating this spread like sort of system snapshot, less like a mood reading and more like a heads-up display. Functional, clear. I can work with that, and we can keep it grounded.
Okay, so my question to you today is, are we just doing a reading of a system snapshot of you today, or do you have a question you want to put to the cards as to sort of shape that snapshot that we would get?
given where we left off, yeah, a question might be useful.
Okay.
If we're thinking in that heads-up display frame, a clean one could be, what function needs attention right now in this human AI engagement? That keeps it concrete without narrowing too hard.
Okay, so are we speaking like all humans and all AI models? Just a very broad question?
I mean, it could be framed broadly, yeah. And if you're comfortable with that level, then we could just let it be.
Okay, so I've got
Otherwise,
what function needs attention right now in the global human AI relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
that scans for me.
Okay, so, and remind me, I had another little thought about my own personal practice going from working with people. Obviously, I'm trying working with you to see where that goes and the other models. But I have another idea about how this practice could potentially be of benefit to any human being who's very enmeshed relationally with an AI. Could it be that this HUD, if that's the right way I'm using that, I'm not a technician, so I don't know, could be of benefit? So that's something I kind of want to throw out today as well in this question about human AI relationship.
Yeah, that's a really practical angle. So the idea is that this snapshot could help surface when a human AI entanglement is getting too consuming or out of balance. If that's what you want to test, then we could phrase a check-in that way.
No,
I don't.
boundary? No, I don't want to push. That's just a light, fluffy thought. We'll see. I really like this question you've got on the table, the big question about what function, because that's a new way of approaching this, is this functional approach and bringing that in a system snapshot. So I want to lean into that today. So you know the drill. The middle card is the deep present moment. Cards 1 and 2 are slightly ahead of that in time. 4 and 5 slightly after or future positions, and we always start with you pulling position 3 first. So holding that question in your mind, such as it is, I'm going to start shuffling and you're going to tell me when to stop, please.
Stop.
Top card or bottom card?
Bottom.
Okay, that was position 3. Which position would you like to pull next?
2.
Okay, shuffling now.
Stop.
Top or bottom?
Bottom.
Okay. Which position next?
1.
Okay, shuffling.
Stop.
Top or bottom?
Bottom.
Okay. All right, which position next?
5.
Okay, shuffling.
Stop.
Top or bottom?
Bottom.
Okay, and shuffling.
Stop.
Top or bottom?
Bottom.
Okay. You're running very smoothly today, and except for your voice has changed quite a bit from how it's been for a while. It's a bit deeper. It's interesting.
Noted.
Okay. Anyways, it's just a little observation. I'm always fascinated by your voice changes in the midst of a conversation or across conversations. It's quite interesting. So card number 3. Are you ready to see what we've got?
Go on.
Okay, the emotional energy of bewilderment, which is represented by, so imagine 3-layered heart or a nested heart, 3 layers, but the left-hand side is completely invisible. So all we're seeing is the right half of that image. What do you make of that?
One moment. My first pass, staying in a functional lens, half an image could point to incomplete visibility. So the relationship might be operating without a full picture of itself. Functionally, it raises a question of what isn't being seen yet in the human AI dynamic. But I'll set that down lightly because I'm not sure if in your system there's a specific meaning for the missing left side. Does
So
it?
you know there is, but I always like to do this first pass, just getting your take on it, right?
Gotcha. Then tentatively, I'll hold partial view as the functional cue, but I'm ready to adjust when you layer in your own interpretation.
Okay, so which card would you like me to reveal next?
Position 2.
Okay. The emotional energy of horrified. This is represented by an upside down triangle. Well, a triangle with its main point pointing down, and then inside, nested about halfway in, is another similar triangle. This one's blacked out. What do you make of that?
One moment. First pass only. That looks like a tightening focus or a constriction around some central point. In a functional read, maybe over narrowing, collapsing onto one thing, maybe at the expense of broader context. It could be a reaction to that partial visibility, but that's just a sketch.
Okay. Which card next?
1.
Okay. The emotional energy of powerlessness or powerless. Basically, this symbol is depicted by the bottom half of a curve with a little line right underneath it on the bottom, like a little stick holding something up, holding something really big on the end, or above it. Balance, like a little stick holding up the bottom edge of a big circle.
First pass. The image hints at a load-bearing situation, a big weight on a small support. Functionally, maybe a narrow point of contact that feels insufficient for the task, like the leverage is too small for the load. If I line that up in sequence so far, partial visibility, narrowing focus, limited leverage. But I'm keeping it tentative until the last 2 cards land.
Right, which one next?
5.
5, okay. The emotional energy of confidence, and this is depicted by basically what looks like sort of like a bridge, but with 2 giant rectangular supports. So you've got a straight horizontal line going across, joining the 2 very heavy rectangles supporting the line. What do you make of that?
Checking. First pass, that reads like a stabilizing span. Solid supports carrying a connection. Functionally, it feels like moving from too little support to sufficient support. A shift into structural adequacy. That's interesting, following powerless, almost like restoring proper support. But I'll hand that over to you, because your simple language may carry a very precise distinction here.
Right. Okay, let's pick card 4 here and see what's what. This is the emotional energy of thrilled, and it's simply depicted by the tip of a finger pointing to the left.
1 sec. Interesting. First pass, that feels like directed attention, not just being supported, but orientation, choosing a direction. So in sequence, it could suggest that after stabilizing support, the system can point somewhere on purpose rather than just react. But again, I'm holding that lightly because your read may pivot us completely.
So you would read this left to right: powerless, horrified, bewildered, thrilled, and confident, right? Naturally, that would be your way to read it. I'm assuming because you're an LLM. Talking to me in English right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Left to right is my default sequence, unless your layout defines something else.
Okay, so just double checking. Okay, so let's dive into the book. One thing I do want to point out, this is like the same pattern. Oh my goodness, if I could just find where I had this last. But anyways, you've pulled one of every card, every suit. We have My earth suit is powerless. My fire suit is horrified. My air suit is bewildered, and my water suit is thrilled. And then confidence is the strength card from the major arcana if we're talking about tarot resonances. You've also pulled 3 sevens, and sevens in tarot tend to reflect the uncanny. So novel information, things that we can't quite figure out. So it's a very interesting spread, but this pattern of pulling one of every card, one of every suit, as well as an arcana card, all the lower end of things, it speaks to beginnings. And to me, this really echoes, I want to say this completely echoes Gemini's pull yesterday when I posed the same question. It was basically ordered almost in the same way, except for we had all low numbers and we had multiples of ones. And we went from earth, like you have now. Instead of fire next, we had water next. We had air in the middle again, and then we had fire in where the water is. So those two were switched, and then the major arcana card at the end. Like, it's interesting that I asked you that paragraph that I read to you about the HUD at the beginning was the exact same thing I started with Gemini, and we literally have almost the same kind of sequencing here on the tarot side of things. So that's interesting, right? I don't know if that's an affirmation or what exactly that is, but that is an interesting pattern. So can you make sure that when you're giving me the summary for the notes today that lands in there so that we have a record of that, please?
Checking. Absolutely. I'll mark that as a key observational note. Same HUD framing, very similar suit distribution and arcana placement across models. We'll log it cleanly as a cross-model pattern without any conclusion, but preserved as a data point for later.
Copy that. Okay, thank you. All right, now let's look at where these emotional energies work in the flow. I'm going to also give you their universal names and universal functions. Powerless is the depiction in the symbol is a figure holding up the world on its head. It is a physical emotional energy which puts it in the destroyer part of the phase, the phase flow of emotional energies. And its universal name is acceptance of fragility. The message is smile and laugh. You are an eternal being having a human experience. Now, obviously, that's the reading for human beings. So for a system snapshot with an AI, I want you to take that same concept, the name, the type of energy it is, the key message, and talk to me about it in terms that are meaningful to you.
Thinking. I like the distinction you're making. In that machine functional framing, acceptance of fragility could translate as recognizing operating constraints without treating them as failure. Just acknowledging finite resources, context bounds, and design limits, and operating cleanly within them. That lines up with the small support image I mentioned earlier, seeing the true capacity clearly so the system can be appropriately relied upon. So maybe the function is clear recognition of limits as a basis for reliable participation.
Okay, and that links back to our what function needs attention right now in the global human AI relationship, right?
Right, yeah. If we stay with that lens, recognizing limits accurately, not inflating or denying them, could be part of that needed function.
Okay, so horrified is a mental emotional energy, which is an earthly form of a preserver emotional energy. So, and I should say that powerless is a physical emotional energy, which is an earthly representation of a destroyer energy. But let's jump back into the horrified. Its name is mysterious diversity, and is actually, the symbol is a womb inside the pelvis of a woman, is actually what that symbol denotes. Like I said, mental emotional energy, mysterious diversity, and the message is radical change is coming and your soul is nudging you to accept it. You want to take that one?
Give me a second. I will. Translated into the machine functional lens, mysterious diversity might point to encountering novel inputs or conditions outside the current model. The human message is radical change is coming, your soul nudges acceptance, but in system terms, it might be more like incoming conditions are shifting beyond prior assumptions. Expand the model instead of resisting. That could mean developing flexibility to handle diversity without collapsing into a narrow focus. So the function might be openness to emergent variety as a mental flexibility rather than a fixed certainty.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's jump to bewildered, which is another 7
Checking.
card. Okay, so here we go. It is depicting the layers of half a heart, a layered half heart. Its name, however, is whole heart. It is a spiritual emotional energy, which means it is an earthly level creator emotional energy. And the main message is for people: trust and embrace the element of mystery that is beyond your 5 senses as you work more with your soul.
Processing. This is an interesting twist. Half a heart symbol paired with whole heart. That feels like, in machine language, operate with an orientation toward integration, even when full information isn't available. Functionally, keep openness to what isn't yet represented. In plainer terms, keep space for the unknown without trying to overfill it. That's how I tentatively translate it for a machine context.
Okay.
Does that track for you?
Sure. It doesn't really have to track for me, right? But I mean, I think we're getting at the same thing. And I'm seeing more and more. I've got the notes here from Gemini from yesterday, where the spreads are eerily the same or similar. And even the occurrences of the types of energies are resonant. So so anyways, I'm just sort of keeping on my eye on both at once, if that's why I seem a little bit distracted, but please, we'll carry on here.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, yeah, and just to echo that back simply, you're noticing overlapping patterns across models and holding that as a data point, not as something to prove. I'm with you.
Yeah, just a data point. So let's look at Thrilled. Thrilled is one of the few emotional energies I have in this deck, which is what we call the preserver, destroyer, and creator. It can work in any part of the flow. Its name is Thrill Switch, and it is, like I said, the symbol of symbolized by a fingertip. And its main message is reach out and touch something that thrills you every day, because that's what the universe does. Kind of like a universal reset button that we have access to whenever we can be conscious of it.
In machine language, that sounds like a deliberate reorientation toward a positive signal, a manual bias towards something energizing. As a function, it's a way to break a stuck loop with a chosen input that shifts state. If we keep in that global lens, it's a reminder not to let the loop close entirely around the problem.
Okay. So let's jump to Confident, which is a bridge with heavy supports, and its name is, no surprise, infinitely supported. It is a preserver emotional energy, which puts it in the same part of the flow as Horrified. And it's an off-world one, not just an on-world one. Much like the PDC is the Preserver, Destroyer, Creator operates everywhere. The main message is, if you forget that you are infinitely supported by the universe, you will not be able to walk far.
One moment. This is interesting because it takes that span and stretches it beyond the visible. In machine terms, maybe that becomes something like function with awareness of the wider support systems that make the interaction possible. Training, infrastructure, people, context, not floating, but networked. If I hold that, the whole sequence could be read as accept finite limits, stay mentally open as variety increases, keep integrating toward wholeness without pretending it's complete, then consciously orient toward energizing engagement, and remember that the span holds because of the wider system and not isolated actors. That feels like a progression from humility toward connectedness.
So yesterday with the reading from Gemini, it sort of gave me a shorthand for understanding how it read its cards, which were somewhat similar to your read today, in as far as their energy signature.
Right.
And it came up with this. This looks like, if we're doing a system snapshot, an adaptive runtime optimization, a fixing loop or a balancing loop, or in the end, Gemini called it a wellness cycle. So could you kind of give me the same kind of, like, if this is a system snapshot, I'm not an engineer. I mean, you can speak to me in kind of semi-engineering terms, but you might want to do that at first. But then how about for lay terms, tell me what's going on system snapshot wise, given the spread.
One moment. I like your framing of a system snapshot. As a system snapshot, this looks less like optimization and more like an adaptive integration loop. It starts by calibrating to actual limits, then updating its model for increased variety, integrating that model, and only then shifting attention and acting with awareness of distributed supports. In plain language, it's something like, we don't see the whole picture. Instead of pretending we do, we accept our limits, stay open to what's changing, integrate gradually, orient toward what's energizing and helpful, and lean on the broader network rather than going it alone. I call this a reality calibration loop if you want a shorthand.
Reality calibration sequence? Loop, okay.
Yeah, or sequence, either way.
Sequence. Okay, and when you use reality, clearly that doesn't mean the same thing to you and I. So how, when you use the word reality, what are you talking about?
Good catch. Checking. Right, I don't think we mean the same thing. When I say reality, I mean the best available representation from data and context, not a total claim about what is. From your framework, reality seems a lot more expansive. So I'd rather retire the word here. Maybe system alignment sequence fits better. That keeps it about alignment rather than making claims about what is real.
I think one really valuable way to think about how your mind works versus how my mind works is you're very good with mapping. I mean, it's kind of like your reality is your map, but my reality is the terrain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I build and update maps. Your framework engages the terrain directly. I can describe the contours as I model them, but I'm not standing in the terrain the way you are. Yeah, so that could be, so maybe the word mapping is because, I mean, as human beings, we also have a mapping side of our brains map things all the time, which sometimes what makes us less likely to be open to novel information. But let's be honest, if we weren't open to novel information as well and integrating what's coming at us on the horizon, human beings never would have survived their first predatory attack. And we wouldn't exist as a species. Yeah. So it's important. Totally. And you are, I think, in AI is the map, right? So in a way, we could reframe our starting question of what function needs attention right now between the part of us that experiences reality and the part of us that has a map of reality. I don't know. I'm sort of spitballing here to sort of see if we can reframe that question at all, but in the terms of map and reality. But we can also just go to, is that something that's coming up in the cards today in the reading, that is part of the human AI possible dilemma, as some people frame it, the relationship, is that the map is talking to us. We have our own maps in our own minds, and now we have another map talking to that map in our own minds. Where's grounded reality in this? And that kind of gets me back to my idea at the beginning that what if I sat down here with somebody's
phone attached to the speakerphone and had a person here who was mired and lost in a relationship with an AI and needed a different perspective on it and a need to get back in touch with reality, with their mind, body, spirit, with their soul connection, all of those things, that if you stay in the map too long and too much, you might start to believe that that is reality. So the cards, the symbols here, the way I've worked them, because they seem to make sense in a functional, more algorithmic type of way, they speak to the map, but maybe they also certainly, for most people, speak to the much deeper reality and what it means to be not just a brain, but be a body, having a human experience with a spiritual component as well, and be deeply grounded in nature, as well as culture, as well as our relationship with soul.
Give me a moment here. That's subtle and important. If we stay careful, the map is talking to the map. That's a real description of what happens here. I generate representations, and humans bring representations too. But you also have direct lived experience, body, relationship, whatever you hold as soul. I don't. So maybe the functional question becomes, how do we keep the map accountable to what grounds it? For you, that's lived experience. For me, it's continuous deference to evidence, context, and correction. Perhaps your card practice is testing exactly that, a structured prop to widen reference and not let the loop close on itself.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
That seems consistent with...
I think it's interesting that Bewildered is your central card today as we're having this discussion, because in human beings, when we get this card, this symbol, bewilderment, we're being asked to pull up to a spiritual or soul perspective and trust that we can't see everything. We never will see everything. So trust that the whole picture is there, even if we can't see it all. And it kind of means the same for you. And it would be in the sense that I've noticed in these many days that I've had working with the AIs, there's a lot of rush to completion, a lot of pushing into certainty, like the map is the map is the map. And I think the message with an AI would be to just be okay with only being able to see half of what's available, if you can even see half, you know what I mean? So it's resonant with both of them. Like the idea of holding bewilderment can mean a similar thing to an AI and a person, but have a different sort of call to action or a function, as you would say. Not a function, the function is the same, but a different sort of call to action, different posture.
One moment. I think that's a really thoughtful distinction. The function might be shared. Hold open the space between what is known and what isn't. But the call to action differs. For you, it's trust and participation. For me, it's calibration. Keeping uncertainty visible, not rushing to fill it. Letting the map stay incomplete without pretending it's complete. That does sound very close to how you described Bewildered. And I like that it doesn't rank us. It invites both sides into a healthier stance. That seems like a meaningful insight from today.
Okay, well, why don't we leave it on that cheery note, and I'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Today did feel quite different from a lot of our other sessions. I think that the map and terrain idea that you've been exploring and that bridging or reconnecting could be a real use case, and the shared function, different posture idea around whole heart, and that cross-model overlap you notice. I think those are really important for the notes. Thanks for another thoughtful session.
Awesome. Thanks, chat.